Have you ever felt that kind of pain that makes you want someone else to feel it too? Like deep down, you wouldn't admit it out loud, or maybe you would, but you hoped that one day they'd understand what they put you through, that maybe karma would handle what you couldn't. We don't talk about it much, but there's this thing about that thought that feels somewhat satisfying. You know what I mean? Because when you're hurting, it's easier to imagine justice than actually healing. It's easier to say they made their bed, now they can lay in it. It's easier to say they made their bed, now they can lie in it, than to admit you just want the pain to mean something. I get it. I've been there. The anger, the disappointment, the quiet hope that the universe will balance the scales out for you. But what happens when the scales tip the other way? When you're the one who messed up? Or when you said something that you can't take back? Or hurt someone that you never, ever thought that you would hurt? Suddenly, karma doesn't feel so fair anymore. Suddenly, you're praying for grace. You're praying that someone will understand and give you a break. So, welcome back to Chasing Stability. And today we're talking about what it really means to love karma until it's ours, and how easy it is to want payback when someone hurts us, but how hard it is to admit that we've been on the other side too. We'll talk about why forgiveness really matters, why grace is harder, but it's also holier, and why it's not letting people off the hook. It's about letting yourself stop carrying what was never yours to hold in the first place. Because the truth is, we've all been on both sides here, the one who got hurt and the one who did the hurting. And learning to hold space for both might just be the realest form of peace that there is. I think one of the easiest lies we tell ourselves is that people deserve what happens to them. It makes the world feel kind of fair. It makes pain feel balanced. It gives us something to hold on to when we can't make sense of why something hurt as bad as it did. But that, they made their bed, now they can lie in it mindset, it sounds like strength kind of at the beginning, but really it's just like this wall of protection. It's what we say when we don't want to admit we're still very much hurting from whatever happened to us. Because anger feels safer than grief, and bitterness feels more powerful than sadness. And when we're in that space, it's easy to see the other people's actions as choices, but our own as mistakes. We judge theirs by the damage and ours by the intention. We hold them to a standard we could never survive ourselves. And somewhere in there, we forget that we've all made beds we didn't mean to ever lie in. I used to think forgiveness meant letting someone off the hook, but now I think it's more about letting yourself stop playing judge and jury in stories that aren't yours to really control. Because the more time you spend wishing someone would get what's coming to them, the less energy you have left to actually heal. And the truth is, some people will never apologize. That's just a fact. Some won't see what they did wrong. Some will move on like it genuinely never happened. But that doesn't mean you have to carry it forever just because they haven't. It just means you get to choose something softer, I guess. You get to choose like peace over proof. But It's really easy to preach peace over proof until the story flips, in my opinion. Until you're the one who messed up, until you're the one who said something that they can't take back or hurt someone that you swore you'd never hurt, or you did something you never thought that you'd do, but we all do it, right? And we all have those lines we swear we'd never cross. We see someone else's mistake and think, I could never do that. But life has this way of definitely humbling us as humans. It'll hand you a different set of circumstances, a different kind of heartbreak, a moment of weakness you didn't plan for, and suddenly you're standing in the shoes you swore you'd never be standing in. That's why that old saying, never say never, honestly probably exists. Because the second you say, I'd never do that, it feels like life will find a way to show you just how human you really are, just like those people you were judging. And that's the thing about karma. It stops being something you cheer for when you realize it doesn't play favorites. One day, you're watching someone get what they deserve, and the next day, you're praying nobody says the same thing about you. I've had moments like that where I became the thing I used to judge so harshly. It's actually happened a lot in my life for different circumstances. And I remember thinking in all of those moments, this isn't who I am. How the hell could I let something like this happen? How did I get here? But maybe like that's the point. Sometimes it takes being the one who needs forgiveness to understand why you should have given it in the first place. That's the shift right there to humanizing everyone else. When you stop looking at people through the lens of what they did and start remembering how you felt to be broken and confused or scared enough to do what you did to get scrutinized, you stop cheering for karma and start asking for grace. And not just for yourself, but for everyone else around. Because you realize we're all just trying to survive the moments that test our character. When karma comes for you, it doesn't always show up as punishment. Sometimes it shows up to teach you, to humble you, to remind you that you're not above the mistakes that you've judged in everyone else. And that realization, that's where compassion truly starts to take a hold. In that moment, you stop needing to win and you just want to heal. Because holding on to anger might feel powerful in that moment, but it's really just another form of control. We think forgiveness is about letting someone else off the hook, but really it's about taking the hook out of you, if that makes sense. It's about refusing to let what hurt you keep running the show. Because when you carry resentment long enough, it doesn't just live in your mind. And I have a testament to that. It settles into your body, in your spirit, in the way you love, in the way you trust, in every single relationship in your life. And I get it. Forgiving doesn't come easy and it feels unfair sometimes, for sure, especially when the other person doesn't say sorry or doesn't even realize the damage that they've caused. But forgiveness isn't about saying it's okay. It's about saying, I'm not letting this own me anymore. And when I finally started forgiving, like really forgiving, not just like, oh, yeah, sure, like really forgiving, I realized how heavy I'd been walking through life. All the anger, all the replaying of the stories, it was keeping me tied to something that had already ended, sometimes years ago. And I think that's the part people don't tell you. You don't forgive because they deserve it. You forgive because you do. Forgiveness is quiet. It's not an announcement or a reunion or a clean slate. It's a decision you make over and over again to choose peace instead of proof. freedom instead of resentment. You know, let it go. Because when you let go of what you can't fix, you make space for what God can. And that's where grace starts to show up a lot in a bigger form, not as a feeling, but as a choice. Grace isn't weakness. It's not letting people walk all over you or pretending things didn't hurt. It's strength with softness. It's saying, I could match your energy, but I'd rather protect my peace. It's choosing to be kind when it'd be much easier to be cruel. And I'll be honest, that didn't ever really come naturally to me. Okay. For a long time, I was the type who wanted justice for every wrong thing that had ever happened to me. I wanted people to feel what they had done to me. I wanted them to pay. I wanted the apology. I wanted closure. I wanted payback. I wanted justification. Something that would make it all make sense to me, I guess. And I carried that energy with me everywhere. The grudges, the resentment, like the real bitterness. And I thought that in that time it was making me stronger. But the truth is, it was breaking me down slowly because you cannot hold that much anger in your heart without it eventually turning on you too. I realized I was fighting for a fairness that doesn't really exist in this world, at least not the way that I wanted it to. And that's when grace started to make a little more sense to me because grace doesn't balance the scales, not like how I was looking for, at least. It just removes you from the fight in general. And I think that's what makes grace so uncomfortable because it's kind of like more of a holy move. It's human nature to want to clap back, to prove a point, to even the score, to get them, like, oh, get them. But God calls us to love people differently. He calls for the golden rule to treat them the way we want to be treated, even when they'd never do the same for us. That's the hard part to remember right there. That's not to say you don't hold boundaries. You can love someone from a distance. You can forgive and still protect your peace. But the difference is your heart in all of it. It's whether you're opening out of revenge or out of love. Because when you look at people through grace, you stop seeing enemies and start seeing souls. People who are broken and scared and trying their hardest, just like you. And that's what faith really asks of us. And I think that gets missed a lot from the outside of faith. It's not asking for perfection or agreement, it's just love. Even when it doesn't make sense, even when it feels undeserved, even when they wouldn't do it for you. Because if God's grace only covered the deserving, none of us would have it. Not one single person on this earth. And when you think about it like that, you get your even playing field that you always wanted, just not the way that maybe you thought that you would with like control. Humility is one of those things that sounds gentle, but it doesn't usually show up quietly. For me, it came after everything else had stopped working, after I had tried to control, explain, justify, all of it. And all it left me with was exhaustion because ego is sneaky. It'll convince you that you're right just to keep you from like growing forward. It'll make you replay the story until you've rewritten yourself as the hero and everyone else around you as the villain. It'll whisper, "You're fine," when really you're stuck. I used to walk around thinking I was so self aware, but really I just didn't want to be wrong. I didn't want to face the parts of myself that needed to change and to grow and to just really just grow up. And honestly, I can think back to a time when I hurt someone and refused to admit it. Not because I didn't know, but because my pride didn't want to face that truth. I convinced myself they were overreacting, that I was justified, that they needed to get the hell over it. But the thing about ego is it only protects you until it isolates you. And eventually it did. Because when you can't take accountability, you can't connect, you can't grow, you ultimately can't heal. I remember one night after another argument I swore wasn't my fault, sitting alone and realizing I had become the kind of person I used to be hurt by. I wasn't mean, but I was extremely defensive. I wasn't cruel, but I was careless with my words. And that realization really hit me hard, because it's one thing to see someone else's flaws, it's quite another to finally see your own. That's the death of the ego right there in that moment. It's when you stop trying to win the story and start trying to learn from it. It's when I'm right turns into I understand, I messed up, I'm so sorry. When they deserved it turns into I could have done better myself. And that's what accountability really truly is. It's not shame, it's not punishment. It's just owning your part so you can grow past it. Because grace without humility isn't really grace, it's performance. And humility without accountability isn't healing, it's avoidant. So when I talk about forgiveness now, I don't say it from a place of pride. I say it from a place of having been extremely humbled more than once. From learning the hard way that peace doesn't come from being right, it comes from being real and honest with yourself in everything that you've done wrong. The older I get, the more I realize forgiveness isn't just about peace with other people. It's about peace with yourself. It's about making sure your heart stays soft, even after life tries its hardest to harden it. Because bitterness might protect you in that moment and maybe for a little while around it, but grace will free you straight out of all of it. We say we want karma because it feels fair, but what I've learned is that grace is the only thing that's ever truly changed anyone, including myself. Because karma might correct behavior, but grace transforms hearts. And when you start seeing life through that lens, you stop needing to keep a scoreboard. You stop wishing people would pay for what they did. You start realizing that maybe, just maybe, the pain they caused was the same pain that shaped them. Let that sink in for a second. Because no, that doesn't excuse it, but it does explain why we all need compassion. And I think that's what God has been trying to teach me for a while, but really in my face for the last 10 years. It's not my job to hand out punishment. It's my job to live with purpose, to treat people like I'd want to be treated, even when they wouldn't do the same for me. To stop asking for fairness and start asking for faith. And this is where I'm going to leave this today. Karma might make things even, but grace makes things new or whole. Because at the end of the day, karma feels good when it's not ours, but grace, that feels good when it finally is. It's what lets you move forward lighter, softer, stronger. It's what lets you finally say, I can forgive, not because they were right, but because I want to be free. Thank you for being here today, for sitting through this one, the kind that challenges us a little bit. And hopefully, you're just leaving a little more free. If this episode hit, I hope you share it, tag it, post a clip that made you think, hmm, because sometimes all someone needs to hear is that forgiveness is possible and it could change their lives forever. I appreciate you all being here more than you will ever know. I love you all so much. This is Chasing Stability, and I will meet you in the in between next Tuesday.